Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Soulfire Sunday. We're on episode 3 right now, guys.
Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations, because we've all stuck with it. It's a bit of a commitment. We're all here 3 weeks in a row. So I'm here with Scott Milne, I have BB Pro, and we're streaming on his page as well, and Paulie O'Byrne, and he has the 1 in 5 page, founder of 1 in 5. So we're streaming on their pages as well as the Sex and Suicide podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Evans, and for this evening, we're going to get into panic attacks and talk about sort of the symptoms, what you feel when you lead up to a panic attack, as well as how to get through it and how to work through that. But first and foremost, Paulie and I have had an interesting week, especially Paulie. But we're going to do a little bit of a talk about stigma, because you've been through a bit of a rough go.
I have, yeah. It's been a tough week, heavy week, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a heavy week for you. Do you want to explain to everyone what kind of happened as best you can?
Yeah, definitely. It hurts my heart to say it out loud every time I say it, but I lost a really good buddy this week to suicide, or we found out this week that he passed away by suicide, and it's tough to accept, for sure. And I think that just in hearing everything that's going on this week with some people talking that stigma is kind of what killed him, and unfortunately I had to go to another funeral because of stigma. And
yeah,
I always say I'm sick of going to funerals because of stigma.
Right.
And I think that stigma is the killer. I don't think that Carl wanted to die. I think that he just didn't have another option because he felt stigmatized, because people put a label on him.
What label do you think they put on him?
That he was a junkie, or that he was an alcoholic, and I never looked at him that way. I looked at him as a great guy. He was an awesome friend. He was compassionate. He was caring. He was lovable. He loved his car. That's one thing. Like, if you're telling him that he's a junkie and he has a G35, like, what kind of junkie is that?
Right,
you know?
right.
I just think that we need to eliminate that word junkie and really look after who he was as a person, right? And I think that he was a genuine soul that's going to be missed sorely. I miss him like crazy, and I just don't want to go to any more funerals. And I mean, I'll do whatever I can. I'll do this 15-week program for 15 years.
Yeah, I know.
Until we eliminate this stigma. Because,
sure.
Like we were just saying, like, I think putting labels on people, that's like being a bully, right?
Yeah,
and, we label, when kids label other kids in school, that's being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that as an adult, or we do that in a medical kind of facility, it's called prescription, right?
Right,
and why do we do that, right?
Like,
It's so disrespectful.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's crazy disrespectful.
It's judgmental, right? That's what I don't like.
I'm just, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm angry. I'll get through it. I definitely will, because I got support. Like,
we love
you
you,
guys,
buddy.
right?
Yeah.
But it's heavy, and I think I'll miss him forever.
Yeah.
I think I definitely will miss him forever. So.
Well, I mean, we're both here for you. We're sorry that you went through everything that you've gone through. But when Paulie talks about the stigma with alcoholism, or being, labeled a junkie for having a addiction to some kind of drug, it's the same thing with mental illness and the stigma. I mean, sometimes it's even harder. I mean, for me, it was easier for me to admit that I was doing blow than it was to admit that I was on an anti-anxiety medication at one point in time, because of the stigma attached to mental health issues.
Right.
So, stigma in itself is a terrible thing, and these labels have to go. We just have to. Paulie has a great thing that he says, which is,
I'm sick of going to funerals.
No, that's not a great thing.
It's a terrible thing.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. That you're just in recovery in general.
I'm in recovery, and I'm healing from life.
Healing, yeah.
Right?
So we're all, I think in a way, we're all kind of in recovery.
That's nice way to put it.
So whatever you're going through, you're recovering from something.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest message for anyone watching, for any Carl's friends, or anyone else that knew him, that, like, if you ever feel like that, like you're not alone, that you can reach out. And I took a lot of blame on myself this week, especially because I thought, why didn't he just reach out? He knows what I do. like, why didn't he reach out? And I think the reason he didn't reach out is because of stigma.
Yeah.
Because of embarrassment.
Because of embarrassment, shame, and guilt. And he didn't want to say, I fucked up again. And it's not that he fucked up again. He was an addict doing what an addict does. I did the same thing. I've relapsed like hundreds of times. And some people call it stubborn, and I call it resilient, because I just keep going on.
You learn something from it every time.
Every single time, right? So,
okay.
You know, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. And
we're here. We're here. We're all in recovery of some sort, right? So, whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction, whatever that may be. So we're here for you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we love you, pal. We love you. And my experience with stigma was last weekend. I had, and I'll explain to you guys, especially people that are new to the Sex and Suicide podcast, you might think just by looking at the name, it's edgy. It's something that is promoting things that are sometimes and quite often looked at by the public eye in a negative context. I mean, how do you put a positive spin on suicide? It's really hard to do. The idea behind this is that we are trying to break the stigma and get people talking about it. It's not that we're encouraging it by any means. And so I have a buddy, his name's Chucky. He supports the podcast, he supports what we're doing, and he's an MMA fighter. And he fought in a King of the Cage tournament last Saturday. And he reached out to me on Facebook and he said, hey Shawn, I really like what you're doing. You and your boys are doing fantastic things. I want to support you, and I want to put your logo on my banner. I've got a fight for King of the Cage in Michigan. And I thought, you know what, this is fucking fantastic, because whether you don't know this, I mean, the story behind the suicide portion in Sex and Suicide is my best buddy a year and a half ago, who also lived here in this house with me, died by suicide. And he was also a cage fighter once upon a time. He fought in a cage fight that put him into a coma. This was a while ago. I think it was sort of, probably at this point it would have been about 10 years ago. But at that point he kind of was diagnosed as having a brain injury. So by Chucky saying he was going to put Sex and Suicide right in front of these fighters, these MMA fighters, I felt closer to Dan, was his name, than I felt in a long time. I felt like finally we're kind of, I feel close to him, because this is where his brain injury happened. He was a die-hard jiu-jitsu fighter and teacher. He taught people, and towards the end he struggled with addiction and he struggled with mental health issues, and part of which was caused by him being put into a coma by the other guy he was fighting. So anyways, last Saturday in Michigan, Chucky had our banner out, and whoever was responsible at King of the Cage, or I don't know who it was, I've tried to reach out to them very publicly on Twitter. They don't have a contact address on their webpage, so I've tried to ask for an explanation. But they covered it up. They asked Chucky to cover it up before he went out with tape. So our logo was completely covered, which is what we're trying to beat here, because that's just like everyone else turning a blind eye. You can fucking cover up the word suicide all you want, but it doesn't mean it's not happening in the world. So we might as well stick it in people's faces and address the situation. And so to me, that was heartbreaking. I spent that night, I burst into tears, because I felt like I couldn't help but feel all these feelings that I felt when I lost my buddy, and how just picturing them putting tape over it was like silencing my friend, you know? It was really tough. And so King of the Cage, if you're watching this, I'm going to be directing this towards you, but that's the explanation behind it. So I'm really not appreciative of the fact that you taped over it. You could have reached out to me and asked, or you could have responded when I tried to contact you, but that's the story behind it. This whole podcast that was started is dedicated to the gentleman that I lost by suicide. So we all want to get rid of the stigma, and I understand that, I'm kind of new to this. I understand there might be rules and regulations when it comes to putting words like sex and suicide in the forefront of the public eye. But at the same time, these are words that exist in Webster's dictionary. You can look them up at any time.
Yeah.
So I just think with that.
Yeah. What's your view on it? Because Paulie has. How many times have you attempted suicide?
Well, I've been in the hospital 3 times. For an attempt, but I've attempted it a few times and not gone to the hospital. So
right.
I'm probably like up at 6 or 7 times trying to take my own life.
And does the name Sex and Suicide, do you find that offensive?
I don't think that reading the word suicide puts it into my brain that I'm going to complete suicide.
Right,
I
and you
think
shouldn't.
The word suicide is, it can be used as like a motivator to not end your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at least when I was struggling, I didn't know what depression was, and I was struggling with depression. And I just needed to know what the hell it was.
Yeah,
right.
Why am I feeling this way?
Why am I feeling this way? I feel broken, right? And I think by that guy, like, it pisses me off.
I know it does, man. I know.
It rattles me up.
I know.
That someone would do that. For them taping over that is them saying, we have no people in King the Cage that have mental illness or addiction.
Right. Yeah.
And that's bullshit.
That's complete bullshit.
Because we know that 1 in 5 people
Yep.
deal with mental illness, and it's way worse in the States. And if this is in the States, maybe there's no fighters in that cage, but there's people in that audience.
Absolutely, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you could pay attention to that poster and say, hey,
what is this?
Maybe I'll check those guys out on Sunday. And
maybe I'll tune in.
You just shut them up. King of the Cage just shut them up so that we can't have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell King of the Cage.
Tell him whatever you want.
To take the fucking tape off. Really?
Yeah.
Because if you think that there's no one in King of the Cage that has a mental illness or is struggling, then you're fucking high.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I get passionate.
And we're here for that too. If you are high, you can talk to us too.
Yeah, we're here for that. I get passionate about that. I can't believe they did that to you.
Yeah, to us, man, to us. But thank you.
It's ignorance in general. That's what pisses me off, right?
Yeah.
Like, do your due diligence, reach out, find out what it's all about before you make a decision to shut it down, right?
Well, the thing is that
you're an idiot.
Yeah, and you have two guys. First of all, you want to talk about sex. You still parade women around holding the round signs up in bikinis. Yeah, so you're basically using sex to sell right there.
Right.
And then you want to talk about suicide. You've got two guys going in. I mean, you think of the movie Suicide Squad. They're basically going in there to... These guys are going in there to beat the shit out of each other and potentially hurt each other.
Right.
So what else do you want? If 2 words can describe what's going on in there...
Sex and suicide.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about all the names of some of the companies that are okay, like being advertised, you have companies like Affliction. Does that not speak about mental health?
Right.
I'm afflicted.
Right.
Yeah, right. You know, and these are certain things that are allowed now.
Or tap out. You're surrendering.
Yeah.
Like you're surrendering to the mental illness, or you're surrendering to the disease of addiction, saying, hey, I need help.
All these things can be turned around in any way that you want.
Right. It's perspective, and I think that King of the Cage is very narrow-minded, and not that I call it anyone a King of the Cage, because I'm just a 150-pound little skinny guy. But
we're not talking about the fighters. We're just talking about, like, I love Chucky. Chucky obviously competed in this thing, but it broke my heart thinking about this guy's supposed to be focusing on a fight, and you're making him tape over something, or someone on his team has to tape over something. Like that's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, it's gutless.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's what happened last weekend. We lost someone to suicide. We had people taping over suicide. It was not a good week for us for Stigma. So we wanted to kind of address that now. And the other thing I want to address before we get into panic attacks while we're on the topic, I had a good friend of mine reach out today who's had a tough time with not being able to stop drinking and has a bit of a... He basically has admitted to me that he's, and we're not using... We hate the labels, but he said, I got to accept the fact I'm an alcoholic. And I've been sober for almost 1.5 years now, but it was because of losing my best buddy and watching his life be destroyed by alcohol and drugs, and my life was going down the same path, that I decided, and I made that promise with him. So that was enough for me. But for you guys who have been to rehab and these programs, what advice would you give? I mean, I already said I'd go to an AA meeting with him, but what advice or for anyone else that's kind of going through this issue that hasn't reached out, what advice do we have for them from 2 people that have kind of...
I think when it came down to it, I've been to 7 treatment centers and 6 detox centers, and I've been to, I think, over 1,000 AA meetings, and people still say, well, what did you do? And I think my answer now is whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Like whatever it takes to get sober, because I've seen the blessings and they work when you're sober.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like connections made, like amazing lifelong connections made sober. And like the things that I was doing when I was drinking or using, like I thought, I would have never pictured doing this, drunk or sober. I would have never met you unless I got sober. And I think that this is a friendship that is going to be lifelong because I got sober, right? And I think even before that, so I regretted making the phone call to the police when I was raped, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw someone talk and share their story because I just shared my story.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I made the phone call. And for years I thought, why did I make this stupid phone call? It got the police involved. So it took me through the justice system for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then I saw my friend Sean McCann speak, and he said, you know, I'm up here sharing because Paulie got up here and shared, and I just feel like I need to.
Wow.
That right there is the reason I made that phone call. So
right.
Like the reason I got sober is maybe for someone watching.
Sure.
So that they can see, fuck, there's this guy who used to live in his car, jam needles in his arms, and he's 3 years sober. Like if I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I was as sick as they come, and I needed support, and I think that was a huge thing. I needed someone to love me.
Right.
I wasn't very lovable, or I didn't love myself very much. And
sure.
I needed someone that was
some acceptance.
Some acceptance for sure.
What do you think, Scott? Like you've had some experience with going to rehab as well. So what advice would you give to anyone that's struggling right now?
I think exactly like Paulie said. Like there is, don't be afraid to say you have a problem.
Yep.
It's not as bad as you think as soon as you put it out there. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. It's
actually empowering in a way.
It is.
When you're not, you don't lie to yourself anymore.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep it a secret.
Right.
Somebody, but you know, it's not that bad. You know, lots of people have come off drugs and like they're doing great and living. So there is the side you were okay before. So
no, that's true.
You have to tell yourself that you'll get through this. Yeah, it's just temporary. So.
And I found a lot of
feeling is just temporary.
Yeah, sure. And when you say it happened, like you lived before you found the drug or before you start to enjoy some of the things you enjoyed as a kid too, right?
You forgot about it.
Yeah,
I didn't know for the longest time. Like I was just stuck in my head that you can go fishing without a case of beer in the boat.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was possible. I thought that was like mandatory, that you had to get a case of beer to go fishing. Right. And I think I've caught more fish sober than I ever did. And I haven't fallen out of the boat at all sober.
Yeah.
I used to do that quite a bit.
You used to fall out.
And like those are gifts of recovery, right? Like, you can finish a whole round of golf. Without falling out of the golf cart.
Right, or flipping it. Like,
those are blessings, really.
Yeah.
Enjoy life, right? Like I think I get to enjoy things so much cooler now and actually experience
and remember them.
My very first concert in sobriety was probably the best concert I've ever seen. I saw Bryan Adams.
Really?
And I'm telling you, the guy puts on a mean show.
I believe it.
So good.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like I don't know if I've ever experienced
felt the passion.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Aerosmith, Wasted.
Right.
And like I can only remember
bits and
pieces of it, and like Steven Tyler or Bryan Adams, right? And I enjoyed Bryan Adams, and I'm a huge Aerosmith fan, but I think that was my first concert sober, and I experienced it.
Yeah.
And I think
and you remember it.
And I remember it.
Yeah. Remembering things is key for me. There's a lot of nights I don't remember. A lot of concerts I don't remember either. I spent a whole Pearl Jam concert. I got way too stoned. I was drunk beforehand. I spent an entire Pearl Jam concert
no way!
Sitting in my seat just like that. I couldn't move. I was comatose.
They're great. I saw them sober. They're great sober.
I'll have to go see it sober.
You'll have to.
It'd be like a whole new experience.
I've never seen these guys before.
Yeah. So I hope that helped people that are watching. If you're dealing with stigma, addiction of any sort, and suicide as well if you're coping with the loss of losing someone. But now we'll get into our week. It's technically week 2 from the material. So we're going to talk about panic attacks this evening. So if you guys were with us last week, you'll know that we talked about the anxiety and depression and stress as well. And we talked about common causes, symptoms, and fears. So let's just go over what anxiety is again. So anxiety is defined as a painful uneasiness of mind accompanied by body symptoms such as heart palpitations, dizziness, feelings that take you out of reality, often about anticipation of some unrealistic ill, something that we think is going to happen. And a lot of people don't feel they've ever had a panic attack, but we're going to get into it anyways. And some of the causes that will help you feel even more anxious are excess caffeine, overdoing coffee or anything high in caffeine may trigger panic attacks, as well as high sugar content. Yeah. So anyways, if you want to learn more about anxiety and depression and the symptoms, the fears, and all that stuff, you just have to tune into last week's Soul Fire Sunday, which is on our YouTube channel. If you can't find it on the Facebook page, I think it's still pinned at the top. So Now let's go through what happens to your body during a panic attack. So first of all, have you guys ever had a panic attack?
I have them weekly.
Really?
Yeah.
Still?
Oh yeah.
Really? So this will help you?
It will, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
What do you have panic attacks about?
The what if thinking.
What if thinking?
Yeah, I'm like so fearful of the unknown that I can like conjure up something in my head that's gonna happen and it never ends up happening, right? Or I think the worst of something and that'll get me going. Like Friday night, I woke up at 3 a.m. from a nightmare, and I still struggle with nightmares like weekly.
Right.
And I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was like judging myself, and I hate that I judge myself. I'm a 32-year-old man who still has nightmares, and I couldn't go back to sleep. Like I just couldn't get back to sleep at all. I had to go for a walk, like get out of my apartment at 4 a.m. People probably thought I was coming home from the bar.
Probably, yeah.
And I just went for a walk, and I probably put in like 7 kilometers just to calm myself down. And like I always say like stay grateful, stay grateful, stay grateful, and that's how I kind of got out of it. It lasted a long time, but I came back home and I couldn't get back to sleep.
Yeah, we got the blood flowing then.
Got the blood flowing, and like just tried to stay grateful and like just have a mantra in my head that like I'm walking on this sidewalk with my shoes and my clothes on.
Yeah, you got clothes and I got
clothes and I got shoes. Yeah. I have an apartment. I'm just walking away from it and I'm coming back to it. Yeah. So like I just have to stay grateful. And they're not the best thing I think about panic attacks is like that I read here is no one's ever died from a panic attack.
Yeah, that's key. So before we even get into this, if you start getting sometimes talking about anxiety and admitting that you get these feelings can trigger panic and feelings of panic. Just know that that's okay. That's totally normal to talk about these. When you talk about anxiety and depression, to start feeling the anxiety a little bit. But no one has ever died from a panic attack, and it's very similar. I thought to myself, a lot of people cope with panic attacks by like smoking weed or whatever, and no one's ever really died from overdosing on weed. But no one's also died from a panic attack, so you don't even need that weed. You just have to learn how to deal. So, have you ever had a panic attack, Scott?
I've had a couple in my life.
Yeah.
Well, I guess more. The first time I experienced it was after I was arrested and I was sent back to my parents'
that'll
house.
do it.
And I was on house arrest and stuff, but like just plus because I was going through like rehab and withdrawals, well not withdrawals then, but rehab and dealing with the addiction part of it. Like my brain at nighttime when I go to sleep, because I have a lot of sleeping disorders. Yeah. And then I just start thinking about it and like thinking about the police and like I'd have like dreams and nightmares waking up from it and like thoughts in my mind and that.
So kind of similar. You guys are kind of similar in that sense. Yeah. Interesting.
Sleep sucks.
Yeah, I know.
I miss it. I miss sleep. And I seen a meme on Facebook. I just gotta tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's an ultrasound picture.
Yeah.
And on the bottom it said, "The last night I had a good sleep." And I thought that's me. Like,
I know. Yeah. I think sleep is huge for a lot of people with mental illness as well, or just anxiety, depression as well.
Every night about going to bed.
Yeah. And that's funny because I get it too. I get it before bed and when I wake up in the morning usually, thinking about the day ahead.
Mine's just like if I'm gonna have a good night's sleep because I have such sleep disorders,
right?
And, like, sleep apnea, and like I'm always tired all the time. And so then I get anxiety about that, and like I want to have such a good sleep, then I work myself up, and it's like.
Do you ever when you can't sleep look at the clock and be like, okay, well if I get to sleep now and I get up at this time, at least I will have had 6 hours sleep. Or like
but you have to fall asleep that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I know.
Sleep
is a big one. I understand that completely. And I remember the first panic. Actually, I think I've had them when I was younger as well. But the one I remember vividly, I was up in Sault Ste. Marie in the pilot training program. And I was sitting there in physics class, and all of a sudden I started sort of feeling like lightheaded. Like it kind of was like feelings of gonna throw up, but a real big feeling of having to like run out of the room.
Okay.
Heart started pounding. Yeah, started sweating. And I remember looking and thinking, like, oh, fuck, I'm going to throw up in front of these people. And so when she goes into detail, and we'll get into this in a minute, but about, I don't want anyone to see me throw up, or I'm going to embarrass myself here, I had to jet.
You get anxiety about having anxiety?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's real. That shit's real.
That is real. So let's talk about what happens to our bodies during a panic attack. So for those of you that are watching, or will watch, what really happens, it's really key to understand what's going on in your body and being able to sense those signs so that you can turn the panic attack around.
I think there's very fine lines between like an anxiety attack and panic attack. Like,
right.
I guess it's just the degree. I guess they
I
could
think-
be considered the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Because
there's.
it's similar, like, feelings and similar...
It's
body
basically
responses.
it's basically whatever you call it. Like you can
Okay.
call a panic attack an anxiety attack,
Okay.
but the anxiety, you can have chronic anxiety that like starts building
Yeah.
into a full blown panic attack. So I mean,
Okay.
panic, I would say, if you had to choose, I kind of think of them as the same things, but I would say panic is the worst case scenario. Anxiety might be, you might be able to calm yourself down without having to leave the room and make a scene.
Okay.
So, anyways, there's going to be a high release of adrenaline, and there's a historical reason for this. And it's to maximize our chances of survival. You have to remember our mind, our brain is a prehistoric device here, right? So,
Caveman.
yeah, exactly.
Caveman.
Caveman brain. So we release chemicals like adrenaline in extraordinary circumstances in which our life may be in danger. The problem is, this day and age, it's not a problem, it's a good thing, but most of the time our lives are not in danger. Most of the time, the little simple stresses, we still treat them as though we are in danger. So
I think the thing with adrenaline, what I wrote here, is that it's like damaging over time if you leave it untreated.
yeah,
And I think that's definitely like the fight or flight thing
Yeah.
there. Like when I feel like I'm getting anxious, like do I leave?
Mhm.
Do I fight it? Do I just freeze? Or what? But I can't stay there.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can't
you have the
stay in
feeling you're doing the right thing though, because later on she goes again. We're following Lucinda Bassett's program from the Midwest Center, so we're kind of going through that. We'll attach the link at the end of the video. But as Lucinda goes into saying, sort of towards the end, when you start feeling them, use that adrenaline energy, and you did it. You went for a walk,
Yeah.
right?
I
So
think
use
those
it
are just
to
like resources that I've learned too, right?
Yeah.
That I can't go and get a bottle of booze anymore. I can't go
Right.
and get a bag of Coke anymore. Like I have to go for a walk.
Coke doesn't help anxiety much anyway.
No,
Yeah.
it's true, right? Like, booze is a depressant. I drank that because I
That's
was
true.
depressed.
Yeah, that's true.
That didn't.
Yeah.
I was just
You're just looking for something to take your
just
mind
something
off
to
the
take my
situation.
mind off.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? And now I go for
Make
a
you
walk.
feel different.
Yeah.
Just to make you feel different than you felt in that
Not deal
moment.
with the feelings.
Yeah, okay. So the fight or flight response is basically what we're talking about here. So when that happens, it obviously works great when our lives are in danger. However, most of the times they are not, and the adrenaline response still occurs. So it can happen in little segments throughout the day, and small things can bother us to produce a little rises in adrenaline, so it can actually creep up on you.
Yeah.
And unexpected phone calls, or you have a lot on your plate and you're running late to appointments. Things like that can just start to build. So anything that triggers negative thoughts and feelings about something or someone releases a little bit of adrenaline over time, and like you said, can be very damaging. Cortisone and cortisol can be released, and they have an impact on blood sugar and weight, and can also affect the immune system. So if you're not dealing with your panic attacks, you can actually be more susceptible to disease and illness, which is interesting. So, which it says here, people under stress are more at risk for all types of disease and infections, and even in some cases cancer. Not to scare anyone out there. If you have, that's probably going to scare you, but just listen and we'll teach you how to cope with those. So this is a response we need in a life or death situation, but it's not positive. It's not a positive response to have when you're just sitting at the office or stuck in a traffic jam or sitting at home with your family. I know that I used to get anxiety over if there was a lineup in a grocery store,
Right.
or it's like, fuck, why do I have to always be behind all these people? Line at the border were the worst. Like for me, I'd always be, why did I pick the shittiest line at the border, man? And
All
I-
these people are going past the
yeah,
still.
yeah. I just want to be going
And then
again.
you get into another lane and that lane starts moving. You're like, fuck,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm stuck in the slow lane again.
Yeah. So if you don't have full-blown panic attacks, you may just have small anxious episodes throughout the day, and the tools that we're going to go over can help. So and like Paulie's doing, you learn to use these chemicals that are being released like adrenaline for positive energy. So it can be useful before, for example, when you go on stage, a little bit of anxiety before you give your talks.
Every time.
Yeah,
Every
it's
single
going to
time.
happen.
Oh yeah.
But it's going to keep you on edge. It's going to be okay.
I think that's one of the coolest things about when I talk in front of audiences. Say like 2,000 people I spoke in front of, and I always think like, I wonder why all these 2,000 people are here.
Yeah.
Like that's my anxiety is saying like,
Yeah.
ooh, I wonder why they're here. But on the same token, I think
Yeah.
I'm here because someone wants to hear it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my anxiety comes down a little bit. But if I wasn't anxious, I had a good friend tell me this one time.
Okay.
And you can use it against me. I don't care.
I'm not going to use it against
So
you.
Beyonce gets nervous before every show, and she's the fucking queen bee.
Yeah,
So
I
if I
agree.
don't get nervous, I'm not gonna have a good show.
No, I agree.
And so I think that's
agree.
a good thing to have a little bit of nerves before I
It
get
is.
there. And even after I talk, I've talked for over 100,000 people, and every single time I'm done speaking, I get vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because I feel
Well, you've
like
let
I
your
just
emotions
exposed
out.
myself to these
Yeah.
people that I don't know,
Yeah.
and then my anxiety comes up, and I just need like
Protective mechanism.
10 minutes to be like Paulie for a second. And I always have people come up to me afterwards, and I always just say I'll come and talk to you, I promise. I just need like 10 minutes
Yeah.
to go have a smoke,
Yeah.
or like just be me for 10 minutes. And
Sure.
it usually works, but
Yeah.
like before and after, all the time.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I'm Beyonce.
You're Beyonce. And so obviously a little bit of anxiety works well
Right.
for Paulie.
Right.
And he obviously has a bond with Beyonce now.
That's right.
But yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna...
But it's not great to have before you go to bed at night.
No,
No.
not
Right?
at all.
And we were thinking that we were just talking about sleeping, and a lot of people get the anxiety before they
Yeah.
go to sleep. I know it's really bad for me when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
When I have a lot to do that day, I just kind of play it out in my mind and work myself up before I even go through it.
Right.
So,
Is that just fear of the unknown, or what do you think that is?
it could be. I think all of this is based in fear to
Yeah.
some extent.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it has to do with the potential what if thinking of like, what if this doesn't go my way?
Right.
What if this goes wrong? And my what if thinking always goes to, even though I know better now, I know I should say, well, what if my day's amazing? And what if
Yeah.
I have a fantastic
Yeah.
day? You can turn it around for the positive, but most people, and we're kind of conditioned to say, well, what if this happens?
Right.
What if this happens? And it's negative.
Yeah.
So if you can learn to turn that what if thinking into a more positive
Affirmation.
affirmation. Yeah. So it's like, what if I go to the gym and I'm sloppy and it sucks? Well, what if I go to the gym and have I feel like shit? What if I go to the gym and I still feel like shit? Yeah. But what if I go to the gym and I have the best? I don't know. I haven't gone yet. It could be the best fucking lift of my life, right?
True.
So we're gonna talk about external stressors versus internal stressors. So an external stressor is basically something like Paulie when you speak, or before you went on stage when you were competing. There's an external reason why you're feeling anxious. There's something that's going to happen. You're going on stage in front of hundreds of people, right? Or you have a flight. I think that was a good example they use a lot. Like some people that haven't flown in a while might be thinking about getting on that airplane. So there's a reason why you're feeling a little bit of stress, and that's the external stressor. So most people think they're afraid to fly, but a lot of people are actually afraid of embarrassing themselves and losing control. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily afraid of flying or afraid of even dying. You're afraid of embarrassing yourself in front of people. So the external stressor, let's use the airplane as an example because that's what they did here. So if you're on an airplane, an external stressor could be turbulence on a flight, right? And that's a real reason to feel anxiety. The internal stressor is the what if thinking and anticipatory anxiety that comes up with that. So that you'd be thinking, what if we crash? What if I throw up? What if I embarrass myself? These are the negative things.
Yeah.
Or what if to switch it to the positive, you could think, well, what if the turbulence is no longer with us anymore? What if I enjoy the rest of the flight? What if it's a nice sunny day and I make a new friend sitting beside me?
Yeah.
These are all positive what if thinking things, right? The more we work ourselves up in this fashion by focusing on the what if thinking of the negative possible outcomes, the more adrenaline we release. And so this is the cycle we get in.
Crippled we get. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the more it scares us. So there's always an external stressor, and then the internal stressors are kind of what work us up to the point where we're only focusing on how we're feeling at that point, and we just want the feelings to go away.
You betcha.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of
I think
interesting.
with
Kind
that,
of
like with
separate
the whole,
tracks.
Yeah.
with the plane thing, that I get anxious when I go on a plane, but
Yeah.
it's because I'm not flying the plane.
Yeah.
Because I want to be in
In
control.
control. It's
right?
a control thing,
And
sure.
so I'm sitting in the back of the seat, and we take off, and it's fine. It's the landing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a wall or the lake or a forest
Right.
or a runway.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But I go to like the lake, the forest, not
Yeah.
the runway first.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I just want to be able to know that I'm going to stop
Yeah.
and be able to get off the plane.
Sure.
And that's, I think, when I get on a plane, I get anxious for sure.
And that's one of those things that was kind of brought up last session as well. But it's the control issue where everyone sort of, it's like people driving. You know, there's those people that like, I gotta drive though, because they have to feel like they're in control, right? And that's the thing, is as soon as you start to relinquish some of this control and realize everything's out of your hands, it's actually kind of a relief.
Can you imagine me flying a plane? Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Dude, I've flown them before, so can you imagine me flying one?
Yeah.
You can?
I could.
Oh, that's nice, buddy. I wasn't bad. Yeah.
The Sex and Suicide Airlines? I could totally see that. Cover that up.
They have Virgin. They have Virgin. Yeah, cover that up. That's right. Cover up by 747.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing, I found this was really interesting, is these are the exact same feelings. So the anxiety feelings that we get are also the same feelings that you get when you're going on a roller coaster ride. But because we're programmed to think of them as excitement, we think of them differently, and it's fun for us and it's thrilling. But as soon as it's in somewhere where
we're in danger,
we're potentially in danger. I mean,
how crazy is that?
Yeah, it's all
perspective.
It is, and it's all in our minds. That's the incredible thing. It's just.
I think that's the thing with all this. Like what I learned here, I wrote it down here. Just perception of self, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about who I think I am, who I feel I am, who I really am, right? And sometimes, for me at least, my panic attacks tell me that I'm something totally different than I really am, right? But I am so wrapped up in that in the moment that I believe it.
Right.
I believe this voice saying whatever.
Right.
But instead I just don't listen to myself and stay present. It's like a perception thing. And I think a lot of people get that they view themselves a lot worse than they really are. We're all our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
I think we should start, I don't know, I don't like that word should, but what I would like to do is just start looking at myself in a different perspective, in like a 40,000 foot view of like I'm sober, I'm healthy, I live in an apartment, I have clothes to wear, I have food in my fridge, like I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
grateful things.
And it's hard. Yeah, when you're feeling grateful, it's really hard to feel fear, which is a lot of what this stems from.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the same chemistry occurs when you're going down a ski hill or on a roller coaster or doing something that like an extreme sport.
Adrenaline junkies.
Yeah, and the adrenaline junkies. So adrenaline junkies must love anxiety, right? Because it's
they
the
live
same.
Off it.
It's the same thing. So we receive it differently, though. That's our problem. We perceive it as danger.
Right.
So let's talk about the feelings people feel when moving towards a panic attack. So don't start freaking out yet, but let's talk about some of the feelings. What do you feel when you're feeling panicked?
I feel like my heart rate goes like through the roof.
Yeah, heart rate.
And I have a tough time. I know it, and I've recognized this just through therapy and stuff. If I'm having a panic attack or anxiety, I have a tough time looking people in the eyes.
Yeah.
And like I don't know.
You don't want them to see that you're having it. You feel like they'll see through you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I wear my heart on my sleeve and in my eyes. Like if I'm upset, people know I'm upset.
Right.
And so if I'm upset, I don't want to look at anyone in the eye.
Yeah.
And so that's like what happens, and then I feel shitty for not looking at them in the eye.
Which only compounds
things. Which just makes it worse, and my hands get sweaty, my heart starts going.
Hands sweaty, heart rate increase.
I can't concentrate on one thing, and I can't make eye contact a lot of times.
Yeah. What about you, Scott?
Same thing. Heart races.
Heart racing is a big one, eh?
Shortness of breath, and then I start sweating profusely, and I start worrying what are people staring at me? And then they're already staring at me because I'm fucking huge. And then now I'm sweating, what's this big sweat? And then it goes.
Right. Yeah, so your mind takes off.
Mine's different from going on an airplane.
Is it?
It's not because of. I don't mind flying or anything else. It's just people looking at me.
Right.
Being uncomfortable.
And the small seats, right? Can you fit in one seat?
No, not really.
Not really?
No.
The people sitting beside you, do they ever get a little bit awkward?
Yeah.
So you're not even afraid of the flying itself.
No,
you're
I'm
afraid
of what people think.
In the confined space.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What they think.
So some of the stuff that other people noted was that obviously their breathing gets faster. Faster breathing is a big one, and shortness of breath. And you start to focus on it. You perspire. The biggest fear when you have shortness of breath, which freaks people out, and I know I was like this too, when I started breathing really short breaths, I'd have, which is the biggest fear, and it's relevant, is a fear of lack of oxygen and not being able to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me in my panic attacks for sure. And it escalates to become a fear. And then you have rapid thought process and the what if thinking. What's everyone around me thinking?
Yeah.
And can they tell? Can they tell that I'm having a panic attack? And then losing control or feeling that way, the feeling of losing control. This is all these things are common throughout all three of us, right?
Yeah.
So obviously,
I used to like think before I found recovery and healing, and I'm so grateful that I did. I honest to God felt that there was a sign above me that said like, this guy's fucked, or this guy's broken, right? And I thought everyone knew that I was.
Yeah.
And so
everybody's fucked and everybody's broken.
Right.
We'd all have those signs
Right.
in our head if we were
and I would
being
just
completely
say, like,
honest.
turn the light off, pull the cord, turn the light off so no one sees. Like, I try to get into a relationship and I'd be like, nope, she knows I'm broken.
Yeah.
Can't do it, see ya. And then I'd and sabotage a good relationship, right? Because I just think, oh, I know what she's thinking.
Right.
And really, those people probably aren't thinking that at all.
No, you don't know.
I just thought that, like, there's just, like, it's written on me and everyone knows. Like, kind of like you getting on the airplane, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's looking at you. I thought, like...
Well, there's the stigma.
Yeah.
Right?
For
Exactly.
sure, there it is, the stigma.
And the labels that you give yourself, and if everybody knew the real me, they wouldn't like me.
I want the people to know the real me now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not perfect. I don't want to be perfect.
No one is.
There's too much pressure to be perfect.
Way too much.
And I like me.
Yeah, we like you too, man. We like both you boys.
Me.
But anyway, the way that these feelings work is it becomes a vicious cycle of us adding fuel to the fire of an already existing fear. So there's the external stressor and the internal stressor, and the internal stressor is us bringing the anxiety out in ourselves by our thinking.
And our worst enemy.
Yeah,
It's our own
exactly.
thinking, right?
Exactly.
Sneaky thinking.
So how do we stop it? So there's self-talk techniques that we're going to use. We utilize the relaxation response. Have you guys done the relaxation?
No, not
I
yet.
did the relaxation on Saturday night. So after
Did it help?
Yeah, it did. So after
Yeah.
I came home from Sarnia from this funeral that was heavy, I like needed to just like go in my little Zen zone. So I like closed my blinds in my bedroom and just put that on my laptop, and it really did like calm me down.
Good, man.
And I think
Good.
that, like.
So you should try that if you can't sleep one night. Yeah,
It really is.
It is a good. It's 15 minutes. It's like 5 minutes breathing, 5 minutes muscle tension, 5 minutes visualization, and it takes you to just 3 really nice phases that'll put you in a good place.
Okay.
So what we're talking about is the relaxation tape. I believe you can find it on YouTube. If you can't find the exact one that we use, you can find a version of it, and just look for relaxation, and it'll help settle you down. The idea behind relaxation techniques is eventually when you do it over enough, which should be daily, you should be able to bring back that feeling. We call it a relaxation response.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to bring that feeling back automatically when you're feeling stressed. It should kind of be ingrained. It takes a while. I mean, every new habit takes at least 21 days. So do it for at least a month, and then try it. I mean, if you get stressed out, you should be able to bring that relaxation response into play. So anyways,
I think with that, like the positive self-talk is the toughest thing.
it is tough,
Yeah.
especially when you're going through a stressful state.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's probably the best thing. Like, so the other night when I was walking around at 4 a.m, I just kept saying to myself, stay grateful, stay grateful, stay grateful.
Yeah.
And I, like, instead of saying, you're a fucking idiot, Paulie, like, you
Yeah.
can't sleep, you're 32 and have nightmares like a schoolboy. Like, instead of saying that stuff to myself, I just said, stay grateful, stay grateful. And that's all it was just trying to calm myself down. And like bring my heart rate down.
Yeah.
Like, I bet my heart rate was the same as like running a marathon, and I was just laying in bed having a nightmare.
What do you say to yourself when you're having those feelings that Paulie's having? Do you try to calm yourself down with positive self-talk, or do you beat yourself up too?
No, I beat myself up.
You beat yourself up?
It's always negative.
Really?
Yeah, it's always negative.
So some of this the self-talk is going to be powerful for sounds like everyone.
Yeah, so.
It's tough. Like, it's probably the toughest thing, but it's like probably the best thing, right? Like, if you can manage it, if you can manage good positive self-talk and like good calming self-talk,
Yep.
then I think that's probably like one of the best things.
Right. I think something that you might want to practice is giving yourself sort of the affirmations too, because the more that you tell yourself these nice, loving things, the easier it is to bring them back in a stressful situation. So I was never one to really get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say like you're amazing the way that you are and you are enough. It kind of sounds cheesy, but the thing is that your subconscious, the more that you say it, eventually whatever you put in there, it's gonna come up regardless of whether or not you believe it. So you feel silly first, but eventually if you can pull that back in an anxiety attack, you'll be fine.
I've written on my mirror, be a fucking lion.
Yeah.
Because I want to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to be just a sheep. I don't want to follow the herd. I feel like
Well, you're not,
got
by
a
any means.
responsibility
Yeah.
of being a leader, right? And be a fucking lion. Tony Robbins taught me that one.
Be a fucking lion.
Be a fucking lion.
Yeah, it's a good way to be.
Yeah.
I had my old coach down the street that did. He coached me, and he's from the Zen Center, and he said the same thing. He's like, "No, you want to be that lion.
Yeah.
You don't give a shit about hyenas laughing. Like you just be the fucking lion.
Be
man.
a lion.
So you guys be the lion.
Be a lion. Yeah.
So obviously we'll get back to business here. The first we're going to get externally stressed by something, whether that's a confrontation with your boss, a trip you're about to take on a plane, a car ride by yourself, getting up in front of people to give a talk or to perform, to do your posing. Whatever it is, that is the stressor. So this is when we have a choice after the stressor. So we can either go off one way and work ourselves up, or we can go off in the other direction and talk ourselves calmly and keep the panic response to a minimum. Mm-hmm. So by going off in one direction is when you beat yourself up and you use the negative self-talk and work yourself up. Here is where we use the self-talk and relaxation, where we calm ourselves down, bring back that relaxation response, and start calmly and positively talking about ourselves, which is kind of cool. So e.g., like for example, if you're thinking about getting up and talking in front of people or getting on a plane, of course I'm anxious. I haven't flown in a long time. So you can explain that there's a real reason this is happening. Or, of course I'm anxious. I'm getting up to talk in front of people. Of course I'm anxious. I'm getting up in a Speedo to flex in front of people, right? Of course there's a reason I'm anxious.
That's one of the 6 steps, right?
Right, that is.
Accepting it.
Yep.
Allowing yourself to feel it.
Absolutely. And so you say these things to yourself, and it's okay. You just say it's okay. There's a reason for it. It's no big deal. But you can feel the difference in your body when you use the calming, empowering, self-soothing kind of self-talk. And we have a choice whether we overreact or we underreact. And that's kind of where the choice comes in. So there's always going to be an external stressor. That's life. You have to deal with external stressors. It's your response that's going to be key. So let's talk about quickly the symptoms of an overreaction. So this is an overreaction. Tell me if this is familiar to you guys when you're having a panic attack. What's wrong with me? What's happening to me? Why is... Yeah, exactly, things like that. I mean, check. Why can't I just be normal? Things like that are going to be the overreaction. And what happens with an overreaction is you release more adrenaline and more cortisone and cortisol type chemicals. Your muscles get tight in your arms and legs and begin to contract and tighten. Your stomach gets tight. You may start to feel like you're going to throw up. Heart rate increases. You may think you are having a heart attack. That's a big one for me. Sometimes I'm always like this. Like, am I having a heart attack?
Is this it?
Yeah. Is this it? Am I done?
I always, if I'm feeling that way, craziest thing, I always get the aspirin into me. Because I heard if you're having a heart attack...
You take aspirin. Yeah.
So I'm having a panic attack. I'm like, I'll get the aspirin.
This is it.
Yeah. Well, that's actually not a bad... It's not a bad way to start.
No, well, if I'm going to go, I'm going to be prepared, right?
Yeah. So I guess Paulie's recommendation is to have aspirin around just
all
in case.
All the time. Yeah.
Don't overdo it on that, though. No. Yeah. So we have, where were we here? And then we have the heart attack. And the other thing is a lot of people will get headache. And this was me, too. I got a lot of tension in my neck. Yeah. And it would create a headache. And when I started to get headaches, I used to feel like, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. Right. I'm going to find a brain tumor.
Do you ever think you're going to have a stroke?
Oh, yeah.
Or like you're just going to be found in your house having a stroke? You're just having
stroke. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm having a stroke. Yeah. Oh my God.
Can you feel my hands?
You know what? Did you ever see the movie What About Bob?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when he starts like breathing into he starts having panic attacks because if he's faking it, he's not actually having it. That was one of the funniest parts in the movie. But then there's times where the anxiety, like these are vivid. Like what we're talking about, like the heart rate increasing, and perspiring. All these things are sort of more vivid things that happen quickly, and they happen to me. I think they happen to all of us. But there's also ones that creep up. So there's a more subtle level of a panic attack, which is when thoughts creep in and you're thinking, like when I said, "Oh my God, do I have a brain tumor?" I might not have a panic attack that day. That might just be from a mild headache. Yeah. But over time, the thought of that keeps with me. And eventually you end up having a full-blown panic attack. So you may stand up and feel a little off balance or a little dizzy, and you may start worried that something is wrong. Anyway.
I think we're bad at like self-diagnosing.
We are, yeah.
You wake up and you feel lost. Something's off today.
WebMD.
Yeah, WebMD. You can basically give yourself any disease in the head.
Talk yourself into it.
Sure.
I'm sick today,
Like we start worrying about
feeling well.
Yeah.
Self-medicate now.
And then you start worrying about what could be wrong, and then you pile all this shit that you created in your mind.
And it's almost like hypochondria, but not
Well,
really.
yeah.
Like it kind of is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna die from a heart attack or stroke or
Anxiety.
brain
A lot of people.
aneurysm.
Yeah, a lot of people with anxiety are hypochondriacs.
Yeah.
Because they're so sensitive. Like if anybody has a disease or is walking down the street, like if you see, this used to be me. I used to walk down the street and I used to see someone with mental illness that would be talking to themselves and they'd be crazy, right? Well, not crazy. I don't want to use that term, but you'd think like, oh my god, that guy's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, what if that happens to me? What if I start talking to myself? Am I going to do that? Like,
And meanwhile, you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, I'm talking to myself the whole time about it, right? So a lot of times people with anxiety are just very sensitive and can kind of internalize what other people are going through and think about it in their own way.
I have compassion for those people. I look at them and think like I would want to spend 5 minutes inside and see what's happening. Like,
sure. See if you can fix it.
Well, not even
I
that.
know.
Just like see what's going on, just for my own kind of interest in mental illness, right?
Right.
Like, see what's going on there. I never spoke to myself like not that I remember. Maybe I did when I was 5, but just to see what it's like. You know, I've never lived with schizophrenia.
Right.
But I'd love to be inside the brain and just understand it from a person with schizophrenia's perspective.
Sure.
Right?
Just I think that's I mean, if we could do that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. It'll happen someday.
Someday we'll be able to. There'll be like a video game, like a simulator. You'll be like, now you have schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Put a helmet on.
Yeah. Sure. And we're very compassionate to those people that do have mental illness.
Yeah,
obviously,
for sure.
We're trying to help people with sort of mild to moderate anxiety and depression. This obviously we're not going to be able to fix a disease that needs serious medication.
Yeah.
So a lot of people with anxiety used to be independent people at one point in time. An anxiety disorder can start to make you feel dependent. Mm-hmm. It can make you feel like you're not in control of your thoughts, you're not in control of your life. And when you start to feel that way, that's depressing. So a lot of this anxiety can make you feel depressed.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the statistics last week, right? Like 85% of people that have anxiety usually have depression.
Yep. They're usually they go hand in hand. And some people start to fear that they might attempt suicide, and that's a very scary thought, right? And that's okay. I mean, I think that I've had enough people on the podcast, and you guys will all vouch for this, that if you think about taking your own life, as long as that scares you, that's okay. It's when you start to feel comfortable with that thought that it becomes an issue, and that's when you need to get help.
An actual option and you have a plan. That's when you need to seek help and resources.
But everybody has thoughts that they can't control. Everybody has things that come into their mind. You're like, why the hell am I thinking that way? It's not a big deal. We all have that. Just don't attach too much meaning to it. And don't focus on one thing and think that it's only you.
Yeah.
So relatives and genetic factors can create worry and panic as well. So if depression runs in the family, or anxiety runs in the family, or even someone committed suicide or death by suicide happened in the family, someone can kind of say, oh shit, this is genetic, what if it happens to me? And that can create more anxiety, and the cycle continues.
I know a lot of people that have or live with mental illnesses don't want to have kids.
Because they're afraid they'll pass it on?
Because they're afraid to like, I have a fear of having kids because I don't want my kids to have to be predisposed to depression or anxiety. That just scares the hell out of me. It's not saying that I wouldn't have kids. It's just it scares me that could be passed on. Like I think it perhaps was passed on to me from my father, who was in the army, and his father was, we lived in they lived in a poverty kind of place in Newfoundland. So I think it's been passed down the line, but it's also up to me to break that cycle.
That's the thing, is that he didn't acknowledge it, right? And a lot of same thing. So you're the one that's acknowledging it. Everything that you learn, you're learning to interrupt that pattern. So even if it is, you're going to teach these tools, probably without even knowing it, to your kids before they even have a chance to really realize what it is.
Yeah,
right?
very true.
Yeah, so I think that the people that stand up and come out and break that pattern are the ones that are going to be able to pass on the coping skills to their kids in the future. So, anyways, this whole thing comes back to fear.
Yeah.
Like, you're afraid. You admit it. You're afraid of having kids potentially because you're afraid of the feelings they might feel.
Right. Yeah.
That's totally under your control,
I think that's compassion for my unborn children.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I just don't want them to have to struggle without help, because I struggled without help, but I'm in a position now where this is all I do is help, right?
Yeah.
And I help organizations who help, and they help me, and I think if I still have the resources now when I have kids, or potentially have kids, then I'll be able to give them all these resources and say,
and you're a resource yourself.
Feeling, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you've gone through all of it, right?
Here's some stuff to help you, right? And they won't have to do it kind of like I did, like with no one, or search with no support, like family.
Your dad was like a military guy, right?
Yeah.
So already you're not gonna raise your kids regardless. And we're getting off topic here, but you're not gonna raise your kids the same way that he raised you, regardless.
No.
Your approach is gonna be different, which may make all the difference.
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
So
at least I'll.
Yeah.
I'll just leave that.
Yeah. We can get into that another day.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a fear that, I think it's probably worse in your mind, just like every other fear.
Yeah, definitely is.
Then the reality will be, right? So some people have spontaneous anxiety attacks, and it may happen in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Seems to be common here. I get them in the middle of the night too. But we really need to try to pinpoint where the anxiety is coming from and what it is we're worried about. So, do you guys ever try to pinpoint what it is that's worrisome? Like, why am I waking up? Other than the fact that it's sleep. Like, is there anything underneath it that you tried to pinpoint?
I've started to now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this summer I started to be able to ask other questions, like, what is really going on that's making me feel this way? Or,
right.
Instead of focusing on the feeling part, trying to figure out the factual parts.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, it's a nightmare, and it's part of like living with post-traumatic stress. So I get the same nightmare. I've gotten the same nightmare for the last.
So you know the reason. Your reason is nightmares.
Yeah. Well, my nightmare is like I'm back in that apartment where I was raped, and I'm being raped.
Right.
And so it happens, and I try to. Sometimes I fight. Sometimes I kick my legs, and it's the exact same nightmare all the time. So I've pinpointed it, but I can't stop these nightmares, but I know why I get them, so I don't judge myself on too much on why I get them. I just still judge myself on getting them, because I think that I've done a lot of therapy, and I'm gonna have to do therapy for the rest of my life with having gone through sexual assault as a man, right? Or sexual assault as a person, as a human being. I don't know, like I've done this CBT, I've done like rapid eye movement, like DBT, that kind of stuff, and like it's definitely gotten less intense, for sure, but I still struggle with these nightmares.
Sure.
So I definitely pinpoint it. It's just, where do I move from there, because I hate being in that spot, right? So I have to move forward from that spot, and I work with my counselor and therapist a lot on that.
Right.
So I have pinpointed. It's just it's a continual thing that I gotta keep working on. And maybe when I'm 60, I won't have nightmares. That's kind of the hope.
Yeah.
I got another 30 years of nightmares, and I just gotta be okay with it.
Well, I mean, maybe don't put an expectation on it, but like eventually, with time,
maybe you'll get less.
Yeah, maybe you'll get less. Maybe using the relaxation when you wake up from a nightmare, using that relaxation, or if you wake up with a panic attack, that might help get you back into sleep.
I didn't think about that the other night. I just put my runners on and went out. That was like the first thing. I couldn't really play my guitar. That's what I do a lot. I play a lot of guitar, and I couldn't really do that at 4 in the morning. Right? So I needed to get out and get moving.
Right. No, fair enough.
I think I'm gonna try that.
Try it next time. Let me know how it works. And I mean, if it like we're talking about, you may have too much adrenaline going to calm yourself down, but I think eventually with time, the more and more you do the relaxation, you should be able to calm that down pretty quickly. Yeah. But if you can't, there's nothing wrong with getting out, going for a walk and using it, right?
I'll let the research begin. I'm sure I'll have a nightmare this week.
So. Well, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will.
Let me know how it goes. So sometimes, being anxiety-ridden and depressed, you can read about someone that's done something to someone else, or this is where it comes to where the sensitivity comes in. So, for example, we can read about someone that has died by suicide and think, "Oh my God, what if I do that?" Or you can even watch a TV show, like a lot of the people that are responding to 13 Reasons Why, right? Like yourself, even, right? Yeah. It brings you back to the point of where your life was a struggle, but also it's just a TV show, right? Like you're not necessarily gonna all that stuff. It happened, unfortunately, but you're not. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen again, right? It's in the past.
And just because you see something on a television show doesn't mean it's gonna happen to you.
Right. But some people with anxiety are so sensitive, that they'll lose sleep over the TV show they watch.
Oh, for sure. And I think you just don't judge yourself on that, right?
Yeah.
I think we need to stop the connection between depression and suicide. Like, just because you're depressed does not mean you're going to end your life by suicide.
No, not by any means.
You know, and
not
I think
by
that's
any means.
where people, 13 Reasons Why,
yeah,
they make that connection. Oh, you're depressed, you're going to end your life.
And there's sexual assault in there too, right?
Yeah. End your life, right?
Yeah. Well, they kind of covered everything. There's drug abuse. They covered like everything in a short period of time.
It was a lot. 13.
Yeah. And that, I mean, we don't want to get off topic here and start talking about that show because that we could go on with that in a whole other podcast. But if you, so this is the thing with anxiety. If you wait until, a lot of people think like, oh, well, when I'm better, when I don't have anxiety, I will go to the grocery store by myself, or I will take that vacation, or I will get up on that stage and tell people about it. But the thing is you can't beat the anxiety. This is where it's going to scare some people. You can't beat the anxiety until you face the anxiety. So this is where facing your fears a little bit, just a little bit, is something that you need to do. You need to feel that panic, you need to feel that fear, and you need to get up and kind of do it anyways. Because only by doing it will you survive it, and once you've survived it, you'll realize it's not going to kill you. Right. So it's kind of one of those things, and then you'll stop getting so worked up about it. But when you're in that rough space, it's much easier said than done.
For sure.
So I know that when I was dealing with anxiety and panic attacks, I'd always run back to sort of bedroom was my safe place, right? Stay in your bedroom. But you kind of have to realize that there is no such thing as a safe person or a safe place. And if you're ever going to die, you have a better chance of surviving if you're around people than being by yourself. So everyone kind of does the opposite of what they really, what's going to be most effective. What they should do if those feelings were real, which 90% of the time, 99% of the time, they're not.
No.
So let's talk about recovering from that, okay? Because we really want to get anyone that's tuning in or watching this is probably saying, okay, we get what panic attacks are, we get it. Let's talk about how we can get through it. So the Lucinda Bassett says there's three. It's a 6 steps, but we're going to talk about the 3-part process. Okay. So there's a process that's involved as well. So the first part of the process to truly recover is that we need to understand that we are creating the problem with our thoughts, with our expectations, and our fears. We are the source of the anxiety. It comes from within us. We're the only ones that can change it, not someone else, not a pill. I mean, it can help, but we have to change something going on here in the way that we think. So number 2, we have to have coping skills to help face challenging, anxiety-producing tasks. So how to talk to ourselves and talk through any kind of anxiety and comfort ourselves. So we have to be able to pick it up, talk through it, and work through it. And then number 3 that we discussed is face our fears. So feel the fear and do it anyway and go through that angst. You might have the time of your life if you just stay at that party a little bit longer and just float through it. If you just let the anxiety come and don't give it any meaning.
I think it's like a belief though, right? Like a belief that you can get through it. Because me, when I started to have anxiety attacks and I didn't know what to do, I thought, well, this is it. Like, like I'm going to have a heart attack or a brain aneurysm. But I never got into, and more recently just doing therapy and counseling stuff, that I really have come to a belief inside me that I'll get through it.
Yeah.
That it's temporary, it's not forever. And like that's, I think the best part about recovering from this stuff is that like I have a full belief that it's not forever. That I'm going to get through it.
Right.
And if I can't do it by myself, I know that I have an army of guys that are going to help me, right?
There you go, 100%.
And I do have an army of guys. Look at you two.
Yeah, we'll help you out, buddy.
Thank you.
We'll help you out. And so, I mean, when you're in that dark hole, let's talk about depression for a minute. Because when you're in that dark hole of depression, you feel like you're never going to come out of it. And it can be really scary. I know I've been there.
Yeah.
And we need to know that we've come out. The one thing that keeps me going when I get in that hole of depression is I've come out of it before, I'll come out of it again. Yeah. I survived it before, I can survive it again. Eventually you learn the tools and it becomes better and better. Like Paulie, one of your tools is when you're depressed, as long as you get out of bed and you go down to the couch, that little step helps you not go into a deeper depression.
I think I've spent years in my bed. Yeah. And I think like that's like one thing, if I'm really low, and I do get really low, if I can make it to my couch and even just do the same thing I was doing in bed but on the couch, then at least I've made it up and I can say I walked 6 steps today, better than 0 steps, right? Yep. And that's an accomplishment. Now you have to take those I think they're little victories, right? And we all have to take those little victories like they're our little mini Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
right?
you do.
So,
It's a good move too. That's a great. You bring up a great point that be proud of yourself for every little accomplishment, because it's not easy when you're going through these feelings.
I don't know.
And people are going to say all the wrong things to you, like, why are you so lazy? Why are you not getting up? That doesn't help any. Like, be proud of just kind of getting up and washing your face.
Yeah.
You know, just the little things. Small victories, baby steps.
Yeah.
So, so it can be really scary, but with each panic, we're going to relate back to panic experiences now. If you allow yourself to float through the feelings, let yourself feel it, and work the 6 steps, which we're about to give you now, on working through a panic attack, this might be the last thing that you need to never have a panic attack again.
Yeah.
So that's good news. If and nobody, like Paulie said, nobody ever died from a panic attack. I have that in big capital writing right here in a smiley face. They always go away. They always come to an end. And a lot of the time with panic attacks, people end up in an emergency room, and usually as soon as they walk through the door,
They know they're in a safe spot.
they know they're in a safe
So
place, so that goes away. And people say, oh, I could have sworn I had a heart attack, or this is a common thing. And like you said, they told themselves they're in a safe place, and this is a place where they can get help. Well, hopefully you can find power in the fact that now that you know that this comes from you, you can be your safe person in your safe place, or reach out to us, and we'll temporarily be until you have the strength to do it.
Yeah.
So when you no longer fear the panic attacks, they'll stop coming, and it's the fear that creates the panic. When you're constantly thinking and inside your head, you'll miss the precious present moment, and this is huge.
That was a big one.
That was a big one, right?
Yeah, that was a big one.
And unfortunately, when you have anxiety and depression, you don't mean to be, but it's kind of a selfish thing. You can't help it again, but
Because you're so focused.
you're so focused on you and what's going on inside you, and what are people thinking, and I know that you can't help it. We've all been there, but it's hard to give yourself to anyone in any way when you're so focused on the way that you feel and your own feelings and your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So obviously it isn't your fault. You weren't, and this is the problem with everyone in this sort of. We're in sort of an awakening phase of life, I think, where people are starting to come forward and talk about these things. The shitty thing is, none of us learned how to deal with this at a young age.
Right.
So
No coping skills.
yeah, there's no coping skills, and that's the problem. So now we're just now learning what this is and learning how to deal with it. I mean, when you're younger, you learn about okay, this is how I drive a car in standard. You learn that skill, but right now it's like we have the car in full, like with the pedal down, but we have the brakes on too. You're just working yourself up. Spinning tires, absolutely. So, okay, so now let's talk about the 6 steps, because this is what people want to know when it comes to panic attacks. I'm going to read these right out of the book. So again, this is Lucinda Bassett's book from the Midwest Center. You guys might have something a little different because on the audio CD, the book's a little more up to date, but it's okay. It's the same kind of idea. So the first step to ending a panic attack, you're going to accept it. You're going to accept that it's coming on. So you recognize that you are feeling anxious. You accept your body feelings as a symptom of your anxiety and a sign that something is bothering you. So you accept that. Number 2, you might want to write these down as well. Give yourself permission to feel anxious about whatever it is that is bothering you. You're going to say, of course I feel anxious because I'm getting up on stage, or I'm going on that flight, or I have a tough time sleeping. Of course I'm going to be anxious. I have a history of this.
So that's the identifying, like what's really bothering you.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, but you're going to give yourself permission because there's a reason for it.
Okay.
And it's okay to have, so you're going to say to yourself, of course I have anxiety because, and it's okay to have anxiety. I know what this is and why I feel this way.
Okay.
So that's the permission.
I know for just on saying that one, the thing that really helped me out going through all this stuff, because I would get anxiety about judging myself.
Okay.
That like the things that I've been through, I had a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances.
Sure.
So like, why beat myself up for doing what any other person would do in that exact circumstance?
Right.
I just did the same thing that you would do if you were in that place. If you were in that place, we would all do the same thing, fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So don't beat myself up, or don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself. Just give yourself permission to feel it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like that, it's a normal like.
Yeah.
For
And
me,
don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't be afraid of it.
Don't be afraid of it. Everybody has these feelings in one shape or form or some time. So
Yeah.
the next one, which is the big one, we did this last week. So tune into last week's podcast if you missed it. You're gonna breathe, and we actually did this all three of us last week. So first you're going to inhale through your nose slowly for 2 seconds, mentally counting 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Then you're going to exhale through your mouth to the count of 4 seconds again by 1,000s. So 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004. Your out breath is going to be twice as long as your in breath, and it's going to come from out of your mouth and in through your nose. Do this for at least 60 seconds. So do it for at least a minute. Usually 2 minutes is better. Step number 4, the inner dialogue. We're going to use truthful, positive dialogue to talk yourself through at the anxious time. It will pass. Examples of dialogue might be, it's just anxiety, it will go away, I will not lose control, I can still go about my business feeling spaced out, and it won't hurt me. Number 5, we're going to distract ourselves. So get busy like Paulie did. This is where you can do something to release some of the self-induced stimulation. So here it says, your body's like a car in high gear with the brakes on. Don't just sit there, walk, jog, clean closets, but do something.
Yeah.
So use the adrenaline. Distract yourself from the way you're feeling. And number 6, you're just going to let time pass. And try to see a little humor in the way that you feel. I mean, we're all kind of laughing about it now because we've been through it. You may feel weird, but you don't look weird. Give yourself permission to feel weird for a little while. It's no big deal. Try to figure out what is really bothering you. Is it some type of conflict that you don't want to deal with? Is it a scary thought? Is it a ridiculous expectation you have about yourself? How about the television program you watched last night? What is bothering you? So again, pinpointing what's bothering us. So those are the 6 steps. They kind of line up with what you have there.
Yeah.
A little bit different. I think she kind of evolved it over time, but the main thing you want to really do is, I know what works for me is even if you don't get any of the other steps, just stop for a moment, breathe, and tell yourself calming things. Just say, it's just anxiety. It's no big deal. No one ever died from anxiety. That's the key thing. Yeah. You're not going to die from this. You're going to get through it. So hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. I know we did. Did you guys learn something this week?
Yeah, for sure.
I did.
What do you have anything else you want to add to this week's episode?
No, not really.
No?
No.
You covered everything?
I think so.
We went through everything in detail?
I think if I could say anything this week, especially that if you're struggling, reach out. Because it sucks losing someone to suicide, and if you're struggling, to reach out, because at least reach out to me. I'm available 24/7 if you're struggling, right?
Yeah.
And if I don't know the answers, I can get help from someone, or I can at least try to point you in the right direction. That I just don't want to see anyone else have to do this alone. Yeah. Because you really don't have to do it alone.
No, and one of the things that I really want to, I mean, I've lost, obviously, we both lost people. Have you lost anyone to suicide as well?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay, so, I mean, God, God bless you. I mean, God bless the situation. But what I really want to get across when it comes to suicide is even this gentleman that Paulie knew that was a good friend, at times he probably felt like no one cared about him and that he didn't have anyone.
A hopeless feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
How packed was his funeral?
Packed.
Yeah. So every one of the people in there are affected by this.
Yeah.
Does
and
not
will continue to be for a while. Cause he was such a memorable guy.
Yeah.
He, if you ever listen to EDM music, that's him driving his car with the EDM as Jack, right? And that's how I will always remember him, and I'm so grateful that I have that memory of him.
It's totally me.
Totally. I think the coolest part that I can take from this, or try to put a positive spin on it, it's sad, it's heavy on my heart, but I think I was telling you guys before, I went back and looked at my last Facebook message, and I told him that I loved him. Yeah. I said, I love you, man. And I hold a little bit of I'm okay with that. That's the last thing I said to him.
But who in that room didn't have that?
Right. We all loved him.
Yeah, but someone doesn't. What if someone in that room that went to his funeral was in a bit of a conflict with him?
Right.
How fucked up is that person going to be for the next little while?
Yeah, they're gonna hurt.
So if you're feeling and you feel like you have no one, I promise you, there's someone out there that's going to be deeply affected by your decision, and it's not a legacy that you want to be responsible for.
No. And we're all here, right? And it's not like we don't want to help.
Yeah, absolutely want to help. So on that note, we'll turn the, if you're on Facebook, or Facebook Live, we'll turn that around. If you have any questions for us, by all means ask. You can always message us at any time. If you're a little shy, you don't have to say anything. We're just here, and if you want to type something, by all means, we'll turn that around. For the rest of you guys, we'll see you next Sunday. Thank you for tuning in.